say to them, well, look, this is why your plan's so important, because then you start to match people that want to help you execute your plan.
Yeah.
And you're not just at the whims of, decision paralysis where you've got 10 different directions that you could go with 10 different people saying 10 different things.
Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Property Pod, your weekly engagement into real estate here in the Hobart Marketplace. I'm your host, Aaron Horn, and I'm joined by real estate agents here at 414 Property Co., Patrick Berry and John McGregor. Welcome back, boys.
Same goes.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. You are. You're looking a bit stiff and sore, mate.
I am.
You walked in very gingerly. Your back was very straight. You were kind of like a board. I'm like, what's going on? You're like, I've been carrying too many bags.
My back's gone.
So what's happened? You've been over to Alice Springs and you
Have been to Alice Springs.
You've come back a changed man, broken man.
Broken man.
Right.
Apparently carrying all the bags and the bikes and everything.
Takes
Did my
it
back
out, yeah.
yesterday.
So
I'm feeling it today.
Being a bike manager is a little tougher than you thought.
Yep, apparently.
How'd it go? How was the weekend?
Yeah, no, it was really good. Parker made finals both days on his bike, so he was pretty pumped. And yeah, it was a really good atmosphere up there.
Yeah.
Especially 'cause you said the Tassie squad was the loudest.
Yeah, like there was, I think there was 350 riders from memory. So there was probably about 500 to 600 people at the venue by the time you count all of the parents.
That's
and
pretty
the pit
impressive.
crew and that. Which, in the middle of freaking nowhere is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Tassie team, we all got behind all of the other kids. There was 11 of them riding and just cheering like crazy for them. It was really good fun.
Yeah, you were saying before off mic that you asked Parker, like, oh, Parker, could you hear us while you're on the track? And you're like, Mum, we could hear you all the way over by
It was
the
almost
stoker.
that embarrassing, yes, we could hear you, Mum.
Yeah.
It
was all a bit much.
Yeah.
But I like to think that's why he made finals, because we really pushed him
Just
hard
that
by
difference.
yelling at him.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't cheering, it was peer pressure by this point.
Yeah, and our advice is really, it's going to go, well, pedal faster. Like, he doesn't know to do that already.
It always helps.
Solid advice, if you think of it.
Thanks, Mum. I wasn't thinking of that.
That's what I've been doing wrong all this time. Jesus.
Well, speaking of some solid advice, there was someone doling out solid advice here in the Hobart area last night down at Brewlab in Derwent Park. John McGregor, you hosted a investment seminar with the team at Rams.
Yeah, well, I guess we did. Blew us out there because we sold out. Well, we didn't actually sell tickets. You just registered. It was free. But
Sell out sounds better, though.
We
sold out.
sold out, baby. Yeah.
I had this really awkward bit where it was like there was 2 tickets left on the Eventbrite thing saying like, you're at almost at capacity. I'm like, do we advertise this and run the risk that when people show up, like say like, oh, there's only 2 tickets left, guys, like don't miss out. And then when they show up, if people don't show up, it's just like, oh man, they lied to us.
Yeah. And that happens. Hey, like I know because I've done coordinated from the experience. We've done this before and involved in the ROT and YBNT. The problem is there's a huge big anxiety that comes around the ticket sales, and it's a typical Tasmanian thing, even for concerts where everyone likes to book at the last minute. And they'll go, let's rock up.
It's also the problem when you offer a free ticket.
Yeah.
There's no commitment to actually turn up on the night.
But that being said, really, really impressive turnout. I would say 35 to 40 people at least, showed up and showed their interest in investing information. How'd you feel it went?
I was really happy with it. I mean, it was the first time we've done it as a team, and you always think if you first one, if you can get to 80-90%, that's a pretty damn good effort.
Yep.
And there's always little tweaks and changes. We go, you could do that a little bit better. Then we'll put on a couple more, and hopefully the goal would be that if anyone ever registers for our event, it'd be like, yep, the 414's events is they're good, they're informative, they're we get in and get out, get what we need. And I think to be able to run those and get a name for that kind of event would be great.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will put these on and actually make no effort and just expect that it just takes care of itself.
No problem. So 12 months' time booking My State Bank Arena, John?
Without question. We'll have side acts, Kiss is performing, Gene Simmons confirmed.
Last time I saw John perform there, he did the Dr. Seuss, all the places you'll go. So wouldn't be his first time up on stage there commanding an audience.
I'd love to know what the support act to an investor seminar would be.
You just wait, baby. I'm pretty sure there's guys on stilts coming through. Cirque du Soleil. I hear is some vibes.
No, look, it was a really, really fun night. It was really cool. Andrew from Rams got up and doled out some advice. And then, while we were packing up all the tech gear, there was heaps of conversation going on and lots of people kind of asking questions. There was some really good questions in the Q&A. Do you want to cover off on kind of anything that was mentioned in the?
Yeah, well, look, the whole I think that the idea was that follow the numbers, not the noise. Was
I like
the
that.
message for the investors, and that there's a lot of noise that's coming through, but how much of that does that of the news? And I like this idea that the media is not there to educate you; it's there to draw your eyes and just make you feel emotional. So you look at read the articles.
Yep.
So there's a lot of reality going on around the globe and in the state that's that has an effect on things, but how much of that information actually help you make informed decisions, and how much of that is actually in your control? Virtually none of it. So obviously, as best as we can we learn to understand what's absolutely in our true control, regardless of what's going on around us, so that then you're able to make good decisions regardless of any market, and you can make moves when it's going up, you can make moves when it's going down, you can make moves when it's going sideways, but then you understand what's totally in your control, and that from here on out you're not just making whims going, oh, I'll buy that because someone told me to. It's like, does it follow my plan? Do you know your numbers, and does it work? And so if it does, go for it. So it becomes a much better way of enabling you to make good decisions for your future.
Yeah, and look, there was heaps of stuff in there about kind of knowing the numbers and making sure that you're not just kind of running on emotion, which I think if you're trying to get into the investment space, it would be silly to be like, I like Coca-Cola, so I'm just going to buy Coca-Cola stocks or something like that, when that's kind of, is that actually going to help me out in the long run? It's just, I love drinking it. So, I drink it all the time, so of course I'm going to buy that. Like, is it really the best way to invest your money? So if you can remove the emotion out of the equation, you'll probably have a lot more success. The one thing I thought was crazy was the demographic across it was so broad. There was 100%. Some young guys asking some really valid questions. There was even a lady asking, like, is there an age limit for me to become an investor? Like, am I too old, or am I aged out of it? It's like, no, love, like, basically, if you want to get in that space, like, come and have a chat with us. It was a really interesting. When she asked that question, I was like, it's such a simple question, 100%. But I'm definitely, people will be thinking, well, John turned it on his head and said, oh, if I'm 16, can I?
I said to Andrew, well, can I get a loan? He's like, technically. I mean, you'd be amazing if you had $200,000 as a deposit when you were 16. That's a pretty damn good effort. But, the thing is,
influences, baby.
Any time is fine. Yeah.
Stranger things have happened.
100%. Yeah. So, and I really like the humility of a couple of the questions too, because it's that thing where, everyone's at their different cycle, and sometimes putting on these events is tough because you're trying to find information that is going to be useful for someone who is a quote unquote expert and someone who's just starting up. And that was sort of what we try to do is again, trying to build a framework of questions to ask and things to revisit when you leave, is that, no matter where you are and what your journey is, revisit this now, because that way, especially as the market does shift, is like, well, now's a good time to reassess your position. Is it, time to buy, accumulate? Is it time to sell? Is it time to just hold fast, Are you maximising your returns as best you can? You're getting all the tax advantages. Even when it says, we ask, so when's a good time to buy and when's a good time to sell? Even on the sell front, we just said, well, if your property's a dud, get rid of it. Quite simply, like if it's high maintenance, it's a low return, and there's no potential for capital growth, that's a bad investment. But sometimes we have this sunken cost idea where it's like, no, I've got to hold on to it. It's gonna come good. It's gonna come good.
I'll polish it into a diamond eventually.
No, mate, you got a dud. Cut it. You are not supposed to be investment right now. These are good.
Got it dud. That's so cool.
But these are good questions for to ask. And from obviously it was a disclaimer that we're not going to quote ourselves to say we have all the answers, and we make emotional decisions too.
Pen. Sorry. Jungle Book pen.
Quick disclaimer. Oh yeah.
Did you miss
it? Sorry, no, the Jungle Book pen. Yeah.
He doesn't even have it. He doesn't know where it is.
He doesn't even know. Oh, where's my $1,800 pen? I don't know. People don't like it.
Yeah.
It's too hard to write with.
It actually really is. Whoosh.
Yeah, I was like, I had to do it twice, and he still.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. I'll be on my game. But aside from if you do like all of us, yes, my emotional buy of a pen. At least if it's going back to try and get that second advice from people that can help you make that decision before you make one that you otherwise might regret. we do regret sometimes. We regret every house we ever sold, regret every house we ever bought, and a lot of the time they're not strategic decisions. A lot of the time people become experts in in upward markets, but most of the time we're just lucky.
Yes.
Most of the time we're just lucky. And I was asking Aaron Murray and I went to the guys at the My Millennial Money.
I listened to that. Yeah, I didn't mind your little intro as well in your American accent, and they hit you up with that. Yeah, that was a very interesting listen.
Well, I asked them because obviously they are buyers agents exclusively, and I asked them how do you negotiate a deal, and in his answer, his was very much he's just straight the numbers. It's like he's got his plan. He knows what he wants to buy, and if the number stacks up, he makes an offer, and then if the offer doesn't land, he doesn't care. Because that way, then there's no emotion attached to it, and they'll buy wherever it makes sense. And the handy thing for him is that then all these properties just become a vehicle for his financial future, and he doesn't get wrapped up in the nuance of the maintenance, the management, how that affects tenants, and all other elements that you probably should otherwise just let go of and let a team manage for you.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a good reference point for a professional and how they operate, and we're trying to there's not enough time to talk about how you do it, but we could certainly cover off all the things that what goes into how a professional thinks and how they map their strategy out. So that was the goal. So that once they've got those base references, now we can source that information to help them, deep dive into it further.
Yeah, and hopefully you covered off some really good stuff, and then the conversations afterward led to some, let's meet up again and we'll chat more about this, and we can provide you with some of the things that we've talked about. You mentioned Simon from Propertyology a few times in your speech, and you kind of used the is it brown chocolate or
milk chocolate?
Milk chocolate, that's them. Yeah,
Brad. Yeah,
yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff in there that was very valuable. We'll try and put the seminar together, and create access to it to some Property Pod listeners if they're interested as well.
Yeah, it's cool to have you to bring in all the cameras. I hope it comes together. Yeah.
Only time will tell, my friend. Only time will tell. If
I notice we're not holding any promises. We'll see how we go.
We'll see how we go.
Well, straight up, like one of the a couple came up to me and they want to buy their first investment, and they're like, "Well, what do I buy?" Because she asked, "Okay, how do I find a cash flow property right now?" And to our answer was, well, if you want it, but she wants to buy in Hobart and then not put it, I said, well, you might have to put a really sizable chunk deposit down to have it, be cash flow positive. And which I suppose, as we know, it's the idea that you don't have to keep putting money in your pocket to hold that property. It's actually, paying you a dividend, you could say. And the answer was, well, maybe Hobart isn't the right move for them right now.
Yeah.
And maybe with their particular goal, they need to consider looking elsewhere, because Gagebrook and Bridgewater used to net us 8 to 10% easily as a gross yield, but those suburbs have completely changed in Hobart, because even though the rents have risen in a big way, so have the prices. So if you've got 100, 200 grand to work with right now, 4 to 5% doesn't seem as exciting. Yep. I'm sure there are other parts around Australia where that can, you can benefit from that.
Yeah, we only mentioned on the podcast last week Toowoomba, or as Simon's
That's
mentioned,
look nuts.
Look outside your local area, and you can definitely find some gold out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was that was, I suppose, part of the reason why those the talks are great, to just get people to think about what they want. And then now we can have those,
start the dialogue from there.
Better conversations. So that's obviously the funnest part, is the work we can do with people after these events. But I think, though, it's really important that you actually do host a good one. So if anyone's out there, feed them first. Just put the food out there.
The beer at the start wasn't too bad either. I didn't mind that when you come up and say, "Oh, you want a beer?" Like, yes, please. I would love a beer.
Yeah, but one of the things too, I know, like we talked about, is when to sell, and the whole idea of it again is what are some trends and what's in your control. And I guess there was that thought, well, now we're leading up into the warmer months. Is that actually a positive time for people to consider moving on their portfolio? Of which, we had one client who, in his perspective, in his idea, like we just said, don't sell because there's money to be made, sell for a good reason. And for one of our clients at Glenorchy, he's like, well, look, the value has doubled over the last 8 years since I've held it. I'm moving it on. I don't need the extra maybe 10% that's there. Look, my asset's doubled. Let's get rid of it. I'm going to move that into my super and other things. So he had a really good tangible reason to move on his asset.
Whereas you also mentioned a story about someone that that has a place up on the Glebe.
Yeah, so that was a mate of mine. He there was a house that sold next door to investment property. Where he lives is still in the Glebe. He built there, but I think that the house next door to his had sold for like 600 or 650 at the time. He's like, sweet, let's cash out. Let's do this. Johnny, can we catch up? I was like, yeah, sure. What we discovered though is that there's that thing whereas he was outside of the 6-year tax exemption for a primary residence to investment. Forgive me the exact wording on it. So it meant that he could be selling it for his 620 or 625, but he was going to get absolutely slammed with tax. So in his head, he was thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to have like, $400,000, $300,000 in my bank account. Realistically, it was more closer to 150.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, it didn't seem exciting. So we spent an hour, effectively me nudging him to say, mate, maybe this is probably not the best idea without directly saying it. And at the end, he said, well, Johnny, it sounds like you don't want to sell my house. It's like, mate, you've got it completely wrong. I really want to sell your house. That's the only way I get paid. I just don't want you to sell your house.
Yeah.
And then he understood. But because what happened was, emotionally, he was like, sweet, money, I'll just throw it into my main house. Cool. But strategically, he was losing a heck of a lot of capital that he could otherwise have access to just by cashing out and getting taxed to the hilt. So he didn't have a good plan of why he was going to sell that property. And that was because we've seen so many people do it now. Like, I just really want to help the client, to say, hey, mate, you do realise there are some consequences if we just cash out now.
Yeah, and look, you could see other players out in the field that just kind of, see those dollar signs and just be like, place on the Glebe, I'd love to have that kind of in my swag as a listing. Like, let's go. So,
And that was a couple that came up to me when, we've talked about building the team a lot. They've had 4 different people giving him 4 different pieces of advice, and they just didn't know who they could count on. Which is a difficult thing because everyone's right in one way. But again, say to them, well, look, this is why your plan's so important, because then you start to match people that want to help you execute your plan.
Yeah.
And you're not just at the whims of, decision paralysis where you've got 10 different directions that you could go with 10 different people saying 10 different things. They run the risk of just never buying an investment property because they're always searching for new information, too much information that it becomes impossible for them to make a decision because they're going to be second guessing themselves all the time.
I guess it's that thing of cutting out the noise and trusting the numbers. Like, and if you can find someone that can give you the right advice with those numbers, you're cruising.
Bang on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was nice, I suppose, from our front too, is to, immediately, of course, we just said, well, now you've got a real estate agent for starters. That was a bonus. But to be able to, hopefully, as we follow up with these people, that we know that we can't give them everything they need, and to be able to put them in touch with the people that we rely on, people much smarter than us, obviously, to help them fill those gaps.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's really nice for those investments where it ends up being a very much a give back exercise. I know from a couple of the staff might say, well, what are we getting out of it? It's like, maybe nothing today. Don't look at that. We're putting these on as if we're going to sit there and all of a sudden get 10 deals out of it. That's not how it works. But I love the idea of us being able to build that trust with people over time, and that's a constant resource for people to revisit to.
I think it just forms part of 414 strategy. We've always been about educating people first. That's 100%. What this podcast is for. That's what our blog's for. This is just another alliteration of that, another version of what we do to help people understand the market better.
Well, I think Joe touched onto it, like our investment specialist, where she said our business is quite transparent with our clients in terms of all the technology they have access to, the information, our communication. And I think also too, there's probably in large part our intention, because I don't see any of us as, I'll say it poorly, snake oil salespeople that are just really in it for a personal gain.
Yep.
Obviously, we have to make sure we make a living, no question about that. But I really love the values that we have in this business, which is the fact that we discourage a person to sell because we'd rather miss the commission in lieu of them having a better outcome that may not be a result of selling or buying.
Yep.
I mean, we had his dad and I listed a property where the couple unfortunately were going through separation, and then they called up and said, actually, we want to stay together. We're like, He's like, we're so sorry with it. It was like, mate, what are you talking about? Like, this is the absolute best outcome because we sat with them and said, you'll sell this and both of you are going to be in worse properties. You're going to both hate it. So we couldn't obviously encourage them to get back together. But if they sold where they are, they're both going to be in a really, really worse off situation. So it was, I guess, enough for them to just think about before, because we could have just got on the market, got it sold, got under contract before they even had time to really think it through. But by just
they rekindled their love.
That's a
little Cupid's arrow just shot on down.
Yep.
John was on the roof with his little arrow.
Oh yeah, we do what we can.
The love doctor.
Yeah. And again, that's and that's the beauty of these kind of events, because at the end of the day, like, we're learning something. It forces me putting it together. It forces me to just spend what I must have spent about probably 15, 20 hours piecing it all together. It's going to be useful.
That's how long I thought it went for while you were talking. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Ouch, that's right.
Well, we had a go at Luke. Maybe it's what happens, don't we?
Look out, Chris, you're up next.
Yeah, we're easy, Mark.
It's all right. We'll turn the 45 into a tight 5. We got this.
We got this. But again, too, like the presentation, because it was, I didn't give myself enough time to rehearse it all. So there's bits where it gets trails off and lost a bit. So, next time we'll be better again.
We got this. This. Look, if you went back and listened to the first property pod and you travelled through the adventure, we're definitely way more relaxed now. We definitely know how to present 1,000 times better than we did when we were like, hello, I'm John and I'm hungover. Indeed. But yeah, look, it was a cracker. We didn't plan on talking the whole show about this today, but yeah, if you were at the investment seminar and you want to send through some feedback, that'd be super. If you weren't there, you've got a little taster of kind of what was covered. Thank you to Andrew and the team at Rams for collaborating with us on the investment seminar. Andrew did a really great performance as well. What's it called? A presentation. Yeah. Performance sounds like a song and dance, like he got up and started singing in a ram costume or something.
No, that would be funny.
Yeah, I would actually pay to see that one. Wouldn't be a free ticket.
It's a performance right there. That's $30 each.
Yeah.
But also too, thanks to Propertyology and my mate Brad at Milkchop, because obviously I was using a lot of their research to help piece it all together as well. So just want to give a shout out.
100%. Watch this space. I don't think that'll be the last you ever hear of the John McGregor performance art piece with Andrew Leggett. Investor seminars coming at you hot this summer.
Tune in every Tuesday.
Yeah. All right.
Really lost it.
And Pat's back still really sore. So thanks for your input. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, guys.
See you, gang.
Bye. You have been listening to The Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Co.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.